ready to achieve great heights? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Power Your Performance, the podcast where we dive deep with leaders in the gaming world and beyond and learn the techniques they use to power their lives. I am your host, Gary Kleinman. Welcome, Jason, the lawyer esports extraordinaire. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. Always great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's nice to see you not on a panel with 500 people staring at us and wondering who's looking at who. So it's good to go one-on-one for a change. So tell me, you're obviously a lawyer. And that's where it all started. As I said to you earlier, it's you made your mom happy by getting that degree and passing the bar, or you made yourself happy by passing the bar. Because I think the good news about passing the bar is you don't have to take it again.
That's basically
it. So, did you always want to be a lawyer?
I did.
Yep.
So ever since I was young, I thought, hey, I want to be able to solve people's problems and help people out. And, being a lawyer seems very attractive to me. I must have had the only Korean mom that didn't want me to be a lawyer, but somehow still persevered through and made it through. And, after working for the government for a little while, government Canada, because I'm Canadian, I decided, hey, look, I want to go back to law school. Went back to law school, did a little bit of banking law in Hong Kong, and then said, hey, I really am interested in this health, technology, and sport intersection. Let's go to NYU. And so from then on, here I am at the University of New Haven and also working for Zuber Lawler. So being a lawyer and an educator at the same time now.
So, when you say you have a Korean mom, so you didn't have to be a lawyer. Since Korea is really the home of esports, did she want you to be an esports athlete?
Oh God, no! My most vivid, my most traumatic memory. I guess it's been a charmed life, but my most traumatic memory is when I was playing too many Nintendo games. So my mom decided to sell my original NES to the neighborhood kids, and they walked away with a great deal on Chippendales Rescue Rangers and a console.
That's so funny.
We're very academics focused, and obviously, even a few years ago, this wouldn't be a career path for either one of us, right?
But there's no question. I've been in gaming, I don't know, 6 some odd years, and I got into it only because I read an article about a female Canadian gamer that was playing League of Legends at Madison Square Gardens, and they said 17,000 people were there, and I said that had to be a typographical error. It just didn't make any sense, because I was doing what your mom was doing. I was sending my kids and saying enough with the games, and they'd sit here today, now that they're adults, and say, there are PlayStations buried in a backyard someplace that I forgot where I put them. So, I get that. So you like to play as a youngster. And did you game all the way until where you are today? You're continually gaming?
Yeah, I still game. I mean, when I was in high school, that was exactly when esports started taking off in Korea. In North America, we didn't know that much about it, but I still remember playing StarCraft with my friends at a PC cafe in Toronto, right? What they would call a PC bang in Korea, right? And so I've been playing pretty consistently since then, but culturally things are a little different. It's a lot more social now. People, obviously talking online and making friends online is a lot more socially acceptable now than it was 20, 30 years ago. So, right now I play mostly single player, sort of like narrative driven games. But, I still jump on to your CSGO and all that kind of stuff pretty regularly and get wrecked by a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's a liberating experience.
Said from a lawyer from a different country. We do have an editing function, so if you want that to come out, just let me know. It's interesting. We say, we couldn't have done this years ago. I mean, what has happened in gaming and the acceptability of gaming is just staggering. I mean, to see almost flipping a switch, right, from it being a cry for help as an activity to, and I can't wait to get into what you're doing at the college level in creating the curriculum and what have you. It's staggering, and I look at my peer group, my buddies have no clue what I do. I mean, and it comes up all the time. It literally comes up all the time. We'll be sitting with 14, 15 guys at our guys' dinner, and they'll go, I don't know, he does something in gaming and health and wellness and digital media, and they go, I don't know what the hell this gaming thing's about, right? And then there's always one or two that are a little bit more progressive. They go, oh man, everybody's gaming. I mean, it's okay. You can get a college scholarship as a gamer, and then the other people are going, really? You can really do that? And when we met at the Sports Nutrition Summit, I can't tell you how many people after our panel, especially mothers, came up to me and said, thank you guys. One, my son loves you because now I understand why he games, and I'm going to give him a little less flack for it. So she said, he doesn't even know it, his newfound hero, because he knows he's no longer getting time out with the frequency that he was. But just the knowledge of the communal aspect of it, and what shocks me is that the publishers don't publicize that. They don't do PSAs about the value proposition of gaming. They don't talk about the community. They don't talk about how people are really bolstering and improving each other's lives and helping them and meeting them. And it's somewhat surprising, and you are an exceptionally educated man. Why are the publishers not professing the value proposition in gaming?
Yeah, I think on the corporate side, they're beginning to do that, right? But the problem with gaming and esports, which is the competitive side of it, is the fact that it grew out as a subculture, right? You sort of had to do it without people knowing, otherwise you'd get mocked, or your parents would take away your consoles, right? So so it grew as a subculture, and I think there's this slow realization that it is now just culture, right? It's the largest entertainment sector in the world, right?
Right.
Gaming is 4 times larger than global film revenues 2 years ago, right? Before the pandemic, it's bigger than the music and film industries combined in terms of revenue. But people don't think that way, because at the end of the day, if I ask you to picture a gamer, and I think I said this during the summit, you picture a pimply kid with Doritos and Mountain Dew. That's what you do, and
right.
That's great for Frito-Lay, and that's great for PepsiCo, but it's not necessarily great for the image of the industry as a whole. And that's slowly changing now. I think there's a lot of people that realize there's lots of money to be made, and once there's money to be made, anything is suddenly socially acceptable. So,
which is true, but you never hear SimCity is the reason. I believe this statistic is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% of all city managers became city managers because of SimCity. And that's shocking.
I mean, it's one of those things where games are very good at training you, right? And that's one of the things we're finding at the collegiate level. We already knew it, but it's more interactive. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to learn by doing, right? And so it's even people, for instance, sim racing, right? One of the guys that has a ride in rally car, he started out as a sim racer, right? So it's an exceptionally good way to learn. It's a great way to do things by application, but again, it just comes down to image, right? People still think it's for kids, that you'll have to give it up once you get a real job and you'll grow up. But I mean, look, I'm starting to get there. My birthday was yesterday, so
Happy birthday.
I'm getting up there. Thank you very much.
Did you buy yourself a new game?
I did not actually. No, I did. I bought myself a VR game, believe it or not.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So, no, so I mean, it's one of those things where as gamers get older, I think a lot more understanding, a lot more realization that, hey, this is a sector, it's a valuable sector, and even if it wasn't, it's at least the popular sector of the economy. Might as well deal with it rather than not deal with it. So, things are changing slowly but surely. But I have to admit, you're right. The publishers have not done traditionally a good job of outlining all the positive things it can do. It sort of just said, hey, we're up till now it's like it's extreme, and you can shoot a bunch of things that you probably shouldn't be shooting and stuff like that.
And even with the turmoil that Activision has had with their corporate philosophy, or let's hope it's not a philosophy. There's so many opportunities for them to paint gaming esports and gaming in such a better light, and none of them seem to want to do that. It's always been confusing to me. When you're wearing your lawyer hat, forget New Hampshire yet, what kind of law you're practicing?
I specialize in sort of transactional work, right? So one of the things I like to tell my students at the University of New Haven is basically, hey, look, when they ask me what kind of legal work you do, I say, when you look at an industry sector, right, like esports, you're sort of doing everything, right? Which is basically, you're doing contracts, you can look at M&A stuff, you're looking at sponsorship deals, all that kind of stuff. That's all just transactions. And you've had a long history in business, right? Contracts,
right? No contracts, contracts, and it's IP, and it's distribution, and it's ownership, and it's margins, and P&Ls, and all the other things that you. So is esports with New Haven what's the best way? Is it a break from just the mundaneness, so to speak, of practicing, or would you like to do that on a full-time basis? And then we'll get into what you're actually doing there on a full-time basis. But is it just, or you'll just like the balance?
Actually, believe it or not, it is my full-time.
Is it?
It is my full-time job, yeah. So basically, I lead the academic programs, both on the undergraduate and graduate sides. I also oversee the team. And in fact, it's my law work that's a part-time basis. Right?
Oh, that's good.
So, I'm in the business.
Jason, that explains your smile.
You've met a lot of lawyers, I can see.
I was one. I was a litigator for many years.
Right,
I am. I got out. I loved it. Great education. Great education. Terrible business. Use it every day. So I feel your pain.
Right.
I love doing what I'm doing because I get to be in gaming and tell stories and with the health and wellness aspect of it, hopefully improve people's lives. So without a doubt. So I get that. So you go to New Haven. And you go, okay, I got a blank canvas. I got to create a program. And that's not like, let's just get some consoles and play. That's a curriculum and that's a schedule. And that's not only just a curriculum in terms of the games and design and what have you, but health, wellness, and nutrition, which we will talk about. So first thing you do when they go, okay, now I asked for this job, I got it, right? Now, there's 2 good days, right? You got what you asked for. You go, oh, now I got what I asked for. What do I do? So what was the first thing you did?
First thing they did was look at what they had planned. They had some idea, and they did pass a provisional curriculum through. So that was some of the work that had been done. But I looked at it and I said, look, there's a lot of good stuff here, but there's a lot missing as well, right? So the first thing I did was, well, if I'm a student, what's the first thing that's going to really interest me? And I thought back to, obviously I still practice, but I was thinking back to, I like applied skills, right? I like to learn about business. I need to know a little bit about law. How do I do that? Do I want to, walk them through an IP course? At the undergraduate level, probably not, and also even at the graduate level, probably not, right? But I do want to teach them about by doing, and like we said with SimCity, the best way to learn is by doing. So I brought in a lot of corporate partners, right? So HyperX, Twitch, Turner Sports, Foxwoods, Resort Casino, all those people, and said, let's build courses together. Right? Let's brace project-based courses where we can, project learning courses where you can actually come in, give the students a business question, and we're going to just attack it. Right. And by attacking the business question, they're going to learn by osmosis sort of the business skills and things that they're doing. So actually, they've provided, a lot of advice to major corporations at the ages of like 18, 19, 20, 21, about what to do about esports.
That's great. Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because, there are a lot of universities and colleges that do have some programs, some official, some non-official, some just gaming intramural, basically, or intercollegiate. But there's no standardized curriculum, so to speak, like there is in art history and English. And so is there a peer group of people that have basically your job title and your responsibilities in other universities and colleges where you guys can actually somehow say, how do we get a standardized curriculum?
It has. There are people with my title, I believe, and there's a growing part. I think at some point I was the only full-time business school professor, teaching esports specifically full-time. But I don't. That may have changed. I think the challenge with this industry is the fact that you can attack it from a bunch of different places, right? Just like sport management. In some places, sport management is all about human kinetics, and it's in the school of kinesiology. Some places it's in the business school. Here, I'm in the business school, right? Okay. So the way I attack the education here is from a business and law focus, right? How do you actually solve a business problem? What are sort of the steps you need to take? And that's different from some of the other schools that might focus a little bit more on, say, the game design stuff or the event management things, right? Because that's not where I come from, and you know how it is. Everybody's a slave to their own backgrounds, right?
Yeah, no question. You go right to a warm market. So is it a certificate degree program, or is it just a series of curriculum courses that they take as part of their overall major?
We have a few, actually. So we do have a full-on bachelor's in esports and gaming. So they graduate with a bachelor's degree in esports and gaming. There is a concentration in esports management within the Bachelor of Science of Management as well, if they want to go that route. We have a minor as well that the students across the campus can take if they want to do that. And we also have a graduate program. We have the first graduate program, an MS in esports business, and that's available online asynchronously as well. Yeah,
well, that's great. That's great. So, how many people teach these courses with you? I mean, are there guests that come in and do lectures and what have you? And
guest lectures, adjuncts that we hire directly from industry. My master's program, for instance, is we have a few people that are full-time faculty, but the rest I brought in from industry, right, to teach courses. So stakeholder relations, consumer marketing, all that kind of stuff is actually taught by people directly from industry, from places like Rec Global, Activision Blizzard, Vindex, so on and so forth. So. I really value, and this is a thing, as a practitioner, I value that kind of learning, right? And especially when you're talking about something like esports and gaming, there's not a ton of theory yet. Obviously, we teach them management techniques, we teach them some legal principles, but it's not like I'm saying like, hey, Foucault said this about gaming. It's not like that, right? So I want the students to understand what the culture is, but I also want them to understand, hey, this is how you interact with the culture from a business sense. So we need people directly from industry teaching that in that case.
So it seems like the focus is to give them tools and experience to actually be employed in the industry, right?
That's right.
And a lot of what's gone on in the last 6 years, and because it's a nascent industry, is you've got gamers who, if they're a professional gamer, they're aging out at 23, 24, for the most part, right around there. There's some aberrations that are, a lot older than that and some earlier. But they want to stay in the business, but they couldn't tell you a P&L or a marketing plan or an event schematic or run a show. They just know how to game. And then for so many years, the management in all these companies knew the P&L and everything else, but they didn't understand gaming. So these kids are really at that intersection at a very early stage that they have a gaming experience, be it casual, competitive, or otherwise, but now they're really learning the nuts and bolts of actually making it a job, right? And
and that's the main thing. The key word there was tools, right? I mean, we both coming from the legal industry, we both know at the end of the day, law school, okay, it's fine, it gives you the degree, but it's the bar exam, it's practice that actually gives you the tools to do anything. And I wanted to skip that part of just saying like, hey, this is what Super Mario was like. Great, you know what Super Mario is like. I don't need to tell you what that is, right? I'll give you the architecture around it, and then you tell me exactly what we can do with it, and give them the tools. And that's just my personal philosophy. I'm not sure if it's the right one, but the thing is, it is one, and the students seem to enjoy it fine so far. So
I think my takeaway from law school is it taught me to think differently. It just taught me to see a much broader footprint than I would otherwise have thought. And I think in your curriculum, it gives people to look at a game and not look at it from the tactical, I'm playing a game and I want to win, right? What goes into it? There's music, there's art, there's IP, there's licensing. There's what happens, when you get sued. for whatever it is that you get sued, and where are, the laws with minors and content and restrictions on content. And that stuff's fascinating because that really is what makes up a game, right? I mean, it's
absolutely.
And without understanding that, it's almost impossible to be in that industry. So, our focus in many respects is health, wellness, and nutrition. How do you incorporate that? Do you see that the incoming students, because they're coming in at 18, 19 years old, roughly, and staying until maybe they're 24, depending if they're graduate schools or not. As they're coming in, do you think that they have any thought about health, wellness, and nutrition? Are they where I see the invincible ones, where if their hand hurts, they go, hey, it hurts. If I'm tired, give me a Monster, Red Bull, Rockstar, as opposed to saying, oh, wait a second, that's loaded with nothing that my body really should be doing, and should I have sleep? So where does that fit in when they come in as an 18-year-old, and what do they look like when they come out as a 23-year-old from the health, wellness, and nutrition perspective?
Well, when they come in, they're 18, so they're invincible, right? I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with a student that all of a sudden he's like, well, I can't type. And I'm like, well, why can't you type? He's like, well, I may have separated my shoulder, but I don't know. And I was, and I was like, how long has it been? Oh, it's been a week or two. And I'm like, you go see somebody, right? So at the age 18, of course you have some of the more athletic ones that will have a routine already, but most people, when they come in at 18, they're just generally just doing what they did all the time, right? And so one of the things that we have to do, and that we do consider our responsibilities, we do teach them, about health, wellness, and nutrition, about getting rest and all that kind of stuff. So the people who are members of the varsity team will get that. It's part of their curriculum. It's something that they're taught about. And then we also have academic tracks as well. So for instance, our BS in esports and gaming, we do have a track for athlete health and wellness, right? So they can take specialized courses in it. So that's some of the things that we do. Can we do more of it? Absolutely. The pandemic really kind of, I came here and 2 months later, it was the pandemic. So we didn't get a chance to build in sort of a wellness plan and a nutritional plan and a workout plan and weight planning, weight training and all that kind of stuff. But these are kinds of things that are in the pipeline. But there is also a communication that if you do want to play at a higher level, which some of them do, most of them actually just want to go into the business side of things. But we do tell them, hey, this is not 5 to 10 years ago. If you go to, I was at Gen G's headquarters, they have sleep pods. So, for their athletes or for even for their regular staff that might want to sleep in the middle of the day and recharge. They have nutritionists, they have trainers. So if you want to hit a performance level, you have to take care of yourself. And that's something that we do tell them consistently. And by the way, we don't just tell them on the athletic side, we say this is also good on the business side as well. Yep. It is very hard to stay up and do any work or be alert if you're not eating right, or you're sleeping at 8 a.m. or something like that. And that's a conversation I have maybe a little too often with some of the students.
So are they receptive to the conversation, or they are still going, I'm healthy, I'm fine, because I'm not even doing annual physicals. I'm not, my mom's not harassing me to, eat more kale or whatever that green leafy is. Are they getting a little bit more receptive to it?
Yeah. I do think that there has been a marked cultural shift, especially as gaming has gotten a little more mature as well. Whereas before I was people were kind of deluded and saying, oh, I'm still healthy. I'm like, I'm still skinny and stuff. I think there is a general recognition that said, I'm okay for now, but in a couple of years, this is going to come and bite me in the butt, right? And that I do need to eat better. I do need to sleep better. So there is more of a recognition that, people are not invincible. And also some of that is because they get to see some of their peers and their older sort of gamers and stuff sort of break down a little bit earlier than they should, right? Or develop RSI or something like that, because they didn't take care of themselves or not be able to function well because they're not sleeping. So, So the good parts of gaming are propagating, but so are the bad parts, and that's creating some recognition in the health and wellness area, I would say.
Yeah, I the one thing that we keep coming across is, gamers have a tendency to game longer than they probably should, right?
Yeah.
And they're probably gaming in a non-ergonomically designed chair, because most of what's out there, other than the Herman Miller line and what have you, and those are pretty pricey, and a lot of college students are not in a position, obviously, to afford that, and even the hardware. Most of the hardware is not supportive of proper wrist positioning and things like that. So it would be nice to see some of the peripherals, the chair manufacturers, the hardware folks, really redesign or look at it. I know there's a lot of talk about it, but in market, there's not a whole lot of really ergonomically designed products for the gamers, and that's a two-edged sword. It just means that they're not going to get it from there. So in order to protect themselves, they have to either take more breaks and stretch and what have you, and they have to eat better because all of that does create inflammation, and inflammation's bad for you, and all the things that every nutritionist and every research exercise performance professional will tell you. It'd be interesting actually to test some of these kids when they come in as a freshman, and then test them annually to see where they are on that chart of speed, accuracy, weight, cholesterol, all the things that is so critically important.
Well, we should definitely collaborate on that, because we do have especially with what you're doing, it would be great to see and chart that. And the other thing that I would also say is, in terms of the peripherals, one of the things that I do find is that gaming is still to a certain extent a very conservative industry, right?
Right. Yeah.
So once they find something that works or a marketing pattern that works, everybody sort of just kind of falls in line.
Right.
And especially when I'm thinking of some of the gaming chairs or things like that, everything looks the same. And,
yes.
and to a certain extent, the industry does need to move past that, right? Games can look a little different from each other. It's fine. We can have different sort of, ergonomics. We can have different sort of peripherals. The marketplace is a lot more adaptable than I think that, the gaming industry seems to think, or generally maybe that's a whole marketing thing, right? I think marketers might be also a little bit more conservative and say, hey, we know what works and let's just replicate that. But, we probably do need to experiment. Even though it is the world's largest industry in terms of entertainment, it's still relatively nascent, all things considered. Yeah. So there's a lot of room to experiment, and I don't think that companies are taking enough advantage of that, to be honest.
Well, the companies that are public companies don't, because they're about shareholder value.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
And how much R&D are they going to do and say, hey, we're doing well now. I'm going to go spend X to figure out a new chair, but we're selling a lot of chairs. I think there's a moral component to that too, and ultimately they will sell more. The one thing I would love to collaborate. I have lots of thoughts on all of that, because that's how I live my life every day. It's at Skins, but I will send today, or if not today, certainly by tomorrow. We have a 2-volume ebook on the top 25 gaming injuries, how to prevent them, and how to train and how to treat them. So that's something you can distribute to every single one of them, and it's actually well done with a chiropractor who has a subspecialty in esports, and he's a major gamer. So I think a lot of it is knowledge, right? A lot of these kids just don't know. They've been doing this for so long. Their parents or gatekeeper parents did not think about, they should stretch, or they should do something different when they were younger. And I know they were saying, get out of the chair, and go shoot hoops, or go talk to your brother, or whatever those dynamics were. But it just seems that there's this long gap of not really wanting to talk about vitamins, right, and supplements. And I had a conversation, an episode we did recently on the podcast with an exercise performance expert, and she said, there's all these vitamins and supplements that gamers should be taking to increase their speed, because it reduces inflammation, and inflammation anywhere in your life will reduce your ability to respond in a game. And that's true if it's your mind, your fingers, your hands, and that's critically important.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that actually struck me about the ingredients industry. Actually, at the summit that we were at, right, the Sport and Active Nutrition, there, because they don't know the esports and gaming industry that well, the way that they market everything is towards peak performance. Yes. And that's fine, but most gamers aren't out there trying to click faster. Believe it or not, they're trying to extend their career or extend their playing time, and not feel like crap after they're done. So I think that as gamers age and as they mature, we're going to see more, but there has to be more, I think, from that industry, from the health and wellness industry, generally speaking, that, that speaks to not just the top 1%, but the 99% of us that are just trying to game and get through our day, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because, I've spoken to so many of the attendees at the summit. I mean, and some of that is selfish on their behalf because they want me to buy more ingredients for some of the products that Skins produces and what have you, and I get that. And if you were to go to my house right now, it looks like I am a drug dealer. There are samples of every powder and every capsule and everything else. So there's this and that, but they're looking at it from a standpoint which is very finite. Is, oh my God, esports is massive. We have to be in it. Not where do we bring value to esports and the player. It's not, and it's FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out. We hear, somebody has an ingredient. Oh, we got to run and get that, but we have a better clinical trial study, and it's going to be plant-based, and all the things that I hear every day, all day. And then you ask, well, we got a sugar that's not really a sugar, and it's not going to stimulate insulin, and all the things. And for me, I love it because it's all education, and I love to learn. But they're really looking at this from, it's a market opportunity.
Right.
And it isn't necessarily a market opportunity if you don't look at what the market really needs. And it's not just another ingredient, right? We don't really need, and we produce one. The world doesn't need another gamer energy product, right? Yeah. I mean, and if we do, we want it to be a little bit different than the bulk of what's out there because it's not all that healthy.
Right.
And that's kind of the conversation when I have with these ingredient companies. They go, oh, well, yeah, but we've been tasked as an initiative. You have to be in esports, right? Yeah. And I get that. Not only, and you get that everyone wants to be in esports right now, right? It's
of course,
and that's whether it's on the team, on merch, on whatever that happens to be. And I go, but that's the tail. You got to get in and go, why should I be in here, and what value can I bring?
That value proposition is everything, and it was very entertaining because obviously I come from a different background of listening to that industry try to explain in very scientific terms what the difference is. And I did talk to somebody and I basically said, your competition is Monster, right? Like, like whatever you do, probably going to be better. So, it's not, so yes, it's really about communicating that value. Right. But for some reason, it's just, because everybody speaks from their discipline and from their background, sometimes I think that especially in the ingredients in the ingredient space and in the wellness space, they just sort of get locked in the science of it and how to communicate minute differences rather than just talking to consumers generally and say, this is what we do. Right. We think it'll help you. Why don't you try it? Yep. Right. And a human approach goes a long way, but again, it was a fascinating insight for me into a different industry, right? One you're much more familiar with than I am.
Oh yeah, so, it's a great industry. And with us, before we go, is from our perspective at Health and Wellness, we get to sit in the middle of all of it, right? So we get to sit in the middle of a gaming. We also get to sit on the back end and going, hey, we can actually formulate these things to help you, whether it's to hydrate you, keep you in the chair longer, with less muscle cramps and focus and everything. All those things we get to look at. How do we do that? And also, so I love the intersection that we're at in that. And yes, we will absolutely collaborate on a few things. I'm going to send you an ebook. I appreciate the time. There's so many things we could talk about. We'll do another session in the future, but keep doing what you're doing in New Haven. The kids are lucky to have you because the one thing I get from you, and I did on the panel, is your infectiousness and your commitment, and your sheer joy about doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much. And, happy to talk anytime. And, thanks for the kind words. And really, it's a pleasure for me to interact with you here and anywhere, basically, because it's refreshing to see somebody that, that came from a similar-ish background and is also in the space going, wow, look at all the crap that's around,
if I could just get my family to go, it's okay, you're no longer a lawyer, but that's a conversation for another day. I think I have to just use your mother as an example.
Try convincing my wife too then.
All right, have her text me. Be well, Jason. Good to see you. We'll talk soon. Thanks for your time, Boo. Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of the MAP Esports Podcast Network and produced by Innovation Media Enterprises. Please be sure to leave us a review and follow us on your favorite podcast player.